Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Prophets of Awakening. This is our Sabbath class, the 8th of July, 2023. The topic inside the class for today is all about Sir Francis Bacon. We're going to go into his who he was and his goings on, his ties to America and all this stuff and all the things that has transpired since then. Okay, you can go to our YouTube channel, Prophets of Awakening, and check out our videos. We have a lot of videos and a lot of information within those videos, and you can that's going to connect dots for you or anyone that's seeking the truth of the Holy Scriptures, the so-called Old Testament. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those that want to support the channel, you can check out our cash apps at the bottom of the screen. Okay. For those that don't know, this is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with Tanakh and the Torah only. Tanakh is the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by the Lord of Hosts, so-called the law. Shalom and welcome to Prophets of Awakening, and welcome to our Sabbath class. We're going to do our moment of silence and our Sabbath prayer, Psalms, current events. You don't need no information. Then we'll open it up for some questions and comments. And then we'll go into the lesson. Okay? So with that being said, this Lord of Hosts, this moment of silence for our Lord of Hosts and Creator Yahweh. Oh Lord, I pray unto the Lord my God, we make our confessions, O Lord, the great and dreadful God, keep your covenant and mercy to them that love thee, to them that keep thy commandments. O Lord, righteousness belongs unto thee, but unto us the confusion of faith as it is this day, to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, through all the countries whither thou hast driven us, because of our trespass, that we have trespassed against thee. O Lord, hear our prayer and cause thy face to shine upon thy sanctuary and thy people for your sake. O Lord, open your eyes and incline your ears to hear and to behold our condition. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, hearken and do and defer not for thy own sake. O my Lord, that thy people and your land need you so much at this hour. Peace be unto you. Okay. So with that being said, we'll go into some current events.
Welcome to Asian Quick Take. I'm Jacob. Get ready for in-depth analysis of the latest news and developments in global affairs, international relations, and technology. For half a century, the US dollar has been the cornerstone of the global financial order. But central banks around the world are now realizing that the dollar's reign is limited. They have begun to aggressively de-dollarize, selling US debt in favor of non-dollar assets such as gold. This suggests that gold is regaining its status as a financial asset and reclaiming its position as king. A growing number of countries are now seeking to join BRICS. As of July 3rd, 36 countries, representing over 60% of the world's population and a third of global GDP, have applied to join or expressed interest in joining BRICS. Interested countries include Saudi Arabia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Argentina, and several European countries. At a recent BRICS meeting, a new option for a gold-backed currency to settle trade was discussed. In addition to the BRICS members, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union are also involved. This option has the advantage of not having to take into account the vested trade and national currency interests of each member country. The aim is to ensure that the reserve status of the currency does not become the exclusive power of one country, as is the case with the US dollar. Given the decentralized nature of digital currency, the only means of anchoring the new trading currency to multiple commodities and member countries' interests is gold. This new gold-backed currency would be completely independent of the US dollar and is expected to become the new global standard for settlement, bypassing or parallel to the US dollar. Gold has been at the heart of the global financial system for thousands of years, serving as a credit indicator for the value of paper money and assets. In the United States, 43 states have eliminated all taxes on the purchase of gold and silver. Of the remaining 7 states, 3, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Hawaii, are advancing legislation to eliminate income taxes on gold transactions. These initiatives are significant steps towards treating gold as a currency rather than a commodity in the United States. Arkansas led the way by passing a bill to make gold and silver legal tender in the state. Texas has also proposed a bill to create a gold-backed digital currency that would support the exchange of gold and exist alongside the US dollar. This suggests that a gold-backed digital currency could serve as an alternative to the US dollar, countering the damage caused by the US debt crisis and ongoing hyperinflation. This trend is a clear warning to the existing dollar-dominated financial system and reflects a lack of confidence in the dollar. Gold is making a comeback in the US monetary system as a natural store of wealth and a monetary function. Markets are beginning to question the credibility and safety of the US Treasury and banking system. As more US states lose confidence in the dollar and declare monetary independence, with gold replacing the dollar, the US may be forced to pay its debts in gold, including to major debt holders such as China and Japan. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon said in a letter to shareholders on July 3 that the current US banking crisis is far from over and will have repercussions for years to come. Anticipation of further interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve Chairman will also tighten credit conditions. Some of the US shadow banks with a lower risk appetite are at risk of a financial crisis at any time, further damaging the financial reputation of US government debt. According to Morgan Stanley's data model, if the US Treasury has to make all interest payments to all creditors, it may have to issue up to $1.7 trillion in new treasuries to balance spending and repay related debt payments. This creates potential risks for the US dollar, US debt, and the US banking sector. Major economies are starting to liquidate US debt at an accelerated pace, indicating declining confidence in US debt. The US is currently facing economic difficulties with the collapse of the debt ceiling, and US debt may become a risky investment. In a media interview on July 1st, US Treasury Secretary Yellen stated that the US has no plans to prioritize repayments to creditors, including China, if it is unable to meet its full payment obligations. US core inflation remains above 4% and the yield on the benchmark 10-year US Treasury bond continues to fluctuate between 3.3% and 3.8%. Even after adjusting for monthly inflation, the nominal yield on US bonds remains in negative territory. This means that foreign holders of US debt, including Japan, China, and the UK, may have to pay interest on their holdings of US Treasuries. High inflation raises the cost of issuing US bonds well above US bond yields. According to the stress test model developed by the MSCI risk management team, if US inflation remains in the high 4 to 5% range over the next few months and there are signs of a significant recession, and the US banking crisis continues to spread, long-term US bond yields could fall from 10 to 20% at the beginning of 2021 to 4 to 5%. This is due to rising US interbank lending rates. While US bonds are considered safe and low-risk investments and serve as an anchor for global asset prices, they have incurred more losses in the past year or so than traders have witnessed in their careers. The market still disagrees with the Federal Reserve's final value of interest rates, and this disagreement could pose a risk of further decline in the U.S. bond market.
Okay, so we see right here from this video how everybody trying to get back. We know back Nixon took us off the gold standard, America off the gold standard back in the 70s, early 70s, but now that everything is caving in on, especially on America, and these other countries are holding up gold. Now we see that this different states are trying to pass legislation within their state to have an alternative to have gold, an alternative to the dollar. But if you go back to the scripture and understanding who Israel is and the prophecies that he have on us that he's going to deliver us, if you go back to when the other times when we were delivered, we was delivered with gold. When we left Egypt, we left with gold. When we left Babylon, we left with gold. So we see the stage being set because there's nothing new under the sun. We're going to leave here with gold. Gold was given to Adam in the very beginning, land of Havilah. Any comments on that? Okay. We got some need to know information right here. This is leading us up to the conversation about bacon. So Francis Bacon.
25 years ago, 70% of Americans said patriotism was an important part of who we are as a country. Since then, the percentage has fallen sharply. Now only 38% say patriotism is important to them. Why the steep decline? Fewer Americans can tell you what Americans believe, the principles and ideas that unite us as a nation. Our next guest says, as we celebrate the country's 247th birthday, we should reflect on our Judeo-Christian heritage and how the Bible and Israel inspired the founding of our nation. Rabbi.
So notice what's going on. He said that America, its foundation is based on Judeo-Christian values and on the the Jews and Israel. So he's talking about Israel that's over there now and the people that's associated with it. They are crediting all that to America's beginnings and America's wealth and power today. So keep all that in mind. It's tied to this lesson.
Mayor Soloveitchik is author of the new book, Providence and Power, 10 Portraits in Jewish Statesmanship. Rabbi, it's good to have you with us. So we know our founding fathers rejected the tyranny of the British monarchy, but how and why did they embrace the biblical values of Israel?
So I think one of the best ways of describing who we are is to see ourselves through the insightful eyes of non-Americans. Obviously, one of the greatest works ever written about America was written by a Frenchman, and that's Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville. But another insightful work was composed by a dear departed friend of mine, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, former Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom. And he noted the following. He said, when he came to visit America for the first time in the 1960s, he visited the memorials, Jefferson Memorial and Lincoln Memorial. And what struck him is that aside from statues, images of the figures and founders in American history, there were also words, the ideas that were inscribed behind them, the ideas that they gave to America and to the world. And what he said is that London has nothing like this. England had a class and tradition-based society. There was no need to explain what it believed, because if you didn't know about it, you didn't belong. Whereas America, he said, was inspired by the Bible to be a covenantal society. It was founded around a set of ideas. And this is where the Bible comes so profoundly, because as Rabbi Sachs put it, he said, Israel, ancient and modern, and America are the only cases in history of a country being founded in dedication to an idea. And that's why the founders looked first and foremost to the story of biblical Israel.
And you highlight 10 leaders, statesmen who you feel best exemplified Jewish leadership, from King David and Queen Esther to David Ben-Gurion and Menachem Begin. So what admirable qualities did all of them share?
So at the heart of biblical statesmanship is a certain sense that even as a man or woman who is reflecting greatness in leadership is truly achieving great things, what these leaders see is providence itself. I once asked a friend of mine, the great British historian Andrew Roberts, whether he could think of a great European statesman that was humble, and he didn't name any. Churchill believed in God, but as Andrew put it, in Churchill's theology, God's job was largely taking care of Winston Churchill. Whereas what's amazing about David is, at the moments of his greatest brilliance in statecraft or military achievements, he always sees the hand of God. Or as he famously says to Goliath, the God that saved me from the lion and from the bear, he will save me against you.
Those of us familiar with the Torah, the Old Testament, and the history of the Jewish nation know that God brought judgment against the people when they took their eyes off of him, when they embraced other gods, they fell into sin. So what is the lesson for America today from the example of these 10 Jewish leaders?
And so what's incredible about the greatest of American statesmen is that they saw providence in the greatest moments of success, and then also in the most serious of setbacks. Thus, Washington, after the victory that was the revolution, wrote an incredible letter, which I would recommend to your viewers, to the Jews of Savannah. If you Google Washington's Savannah Jews, he compared the miracles of the Exodus to what he saw
So notice these Jews in America.
As the miracles
during
of
the
the
time of
revolution.
George Washington.
Both, of course, involve the victory of a tiny people against what was then one of the most important and powerful empires on earth. But then we have another incredible example of American statesmanship, which is Lincoln, who gives what I think is the greatest speech in American history, which is the second inaugural. And there, yes, Lincoln is about to win the war, but what Lincoln doesn't do in this inaugural is revel in his victory. He doesn't get up there and say, as we might have expected someone today to say, USA, USA, USA. Rather, he says, this is the great losses that we have experienced throughout the country is God's judgment.
What do you want people to learn from the book?
Well, there's a few different lessons I would like us to learn from the book. One is to see what biblical statesmanship truly is. And you see that in great figures of faith like David, and I believe of Menachem Begin. But you also see, and this is something I think your viewers will truly understand, how one of the other aspects of the story of the Jews is that even in moments where faith is not playing a central role, the mysterious story of the Jewish people becomes the greatest source of faith itself.
Okay, so you notice how in this conversation how you mentioned an Israelite like David or Solomon, then he turn around and mention a Jew in the same sentence. That's how we've been deceived. They tying our history with theirs, making it synchronize it. And most people don't understand is two different nationalities of people. And the most I showed us that, like I said, when Jacob was born, he gave you a description of what Jacob looked like. And when Esau was born, he gave you a description of what he looked like. And nobody focused on that. Okay. So we're gonna open it up for some questions and comments. Anybody have any questions or comments? Anything they want to talk about before we go into the lesson? Okay. Let me get this right here real quick. Okay, I was talking about this last night. We kind of came up a little bit. I'm gonna play this, then we'll go into the lesson. It's about the Christianity and the church being the four beasts, but it's particularly specifically focusing on the mark. See? What's going on here? Got some gremlins.
Welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm your host, Steve Eisenhower, and I'm joined with my good friend Davon Mays again from Clouds of Torah.
Peace, peace. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
And today we are going to move right along with our Mark of the Beast series that we've been going over for the last few weeks. And yeah, today we're going to give a little bit of context on what exactly the Mark of the Beast could be, what it is. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, give Davon and I a big thumbs up, and check the description for his books and all sorts of other resources that you may need. All right, so let's hop right into it.
I'm currently out of the office.
Coming through okay?
Looking good. The biggest lie.
The biggest lie. And everyone will find out why we call it that in just a minute, right?
Yeah, if you haven't figured that out, yeah, you got some studying to do.
Right. The mark.
The mark, Revelation 13:6. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand and or on their foreheads. Strong's 54 Ada, Chiragma, a mark, a stamp or impression. Usage, sculpture, engraving, stamp, or sign. Helps word studies. Zeragma, properly an engraving, etching, figuratively a mark providing undeniable identification, like a symbol giving irrefutable connection between parties. Zeragma brand was originally an impress on a coin or a seal used by an engraver or a die. The identification marker, stamp, branding iron later became like with an owner's unique brand mark. So the first thing I'm getting is 2,000 years ago, before people were thinking computer chips,
Right.
they were literally thinking some type of a stamp or a symbol.
Yep.
And it says originally an impressed on a coin. So for instance, give Caesar's things unto Caesar. There was some identification markers on that coin, or something engraved on a coin. So for people to be looking for a chip 2,000 years ago, even 100 years ago, was not on the mind.
Right. Or sculptures or engravings or etchings, tattoos, statues, all sorts of things that could bear the mark, the name, the number. And we'll get into it as we move forward, but statues are a main thing. We talked about statues for quite a while last time. I think the biggest takeaway from this and the usages and what the word really means is that this is some type of physical designation, not some chip in your arm that
you can't see,
that people can locate you. This is a sign, right? This is something you can see, something that make it easily distinguishable from other things.
It says a mark providing undeniable identification.
Right.
If I got a chip in, you don't know what I have in my arm or my finger or my arm, wherever this chip is located.
Right.
But 2,000 years ago, people knew exactly with a branding iron. Like that's pretty, self-evident of what you got on your body.
Right.
They do that to animals.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you think about when you hear about a branding iron
in the context of 2,000 years ago is slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Even in recent slave culture, there was brandings with literal branding irons to know who you belong to.
Right at the bottom of the screen, it says later became like with an owner's unique brand mark, owners.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's walking around 2,000 years ago trying to figure out what's in somebody's arm, and they can just look on their body for some type of sign or engraving.
Right.
Oh yeah. Now it says he causes all, both small and great. Now the question is, who is the he? And we've been talking about this. If the he is the beast or the antichrist, and Romans 13 says you got to obey the superior authority, and at this time, this beast would be that superior authority, are you going against what Paul said? But he said he got that from Jesus, Galatians 1, 11, and 12. So I'm going to keep bringing this back and beating the dead horse to y'all understand the mark of the beast comes from Christianity, because that's who was the ruling authority at the time when these books were written.
Right.
You would not be looking to anybody else to be the beast except for them.
Right. So that's what I was saying last night. That when you understand that who Antiochus is, and the stuff that went on in the book of Daniel, it was prophesied about the four beasts coming, and the second and the third. Daniel was in captivity in the first beast, so he's prophesying about the Medes and Persians coming when he had the dream of the ram and the he goat, and then he talked about the four beasts being diverse from all the other ones, and that four beasts is wrong, and all this, the mark and all this, like the guy was saying, the mark already established. It's not no technology coming in the future. The mark is already established. It's like the Antichrist already came. The beast system is damn near old. So the mark already, that is already taken place. That's already already in effect. And when you understand the time of the Gentiles, well, who was the Gentiles? Third and fourth beasts, the Greeks and the Romans. They come out of Japhet. That's the Gentiles. So all this stuff, that's how they tricked us off here, and that's what we're gonna get into with Sir Francis Bacon. A lot of this stuff already went down and they didn't crystallize it and got us. We off on something else. We throw it off. So with that being said, any comments on that?
Shalom, everyone. Brother
Okay,
Leonard, I was
so,
thinking about when, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I was thinking about when he was saying about the branding, right? So
Right.
2,000 years ago or back in the day, they used what was available, right? So when they brought us
Right.
over here, like he said, the first thing they did, they branded us. So we
Exactly.
knew they knew who we belonged to as far as the slave owners, right? And so
Exactly.
even when we tried to run away or disobedient, they still branded us by whooping us. So when they had their shirts off or they saw their backs and all of that, they saw that that slave was disobedient, what they say. You know what I'm saying? The more
Exactly.
marks you had on you indicated how disobedient that master thought that you were.
Right, exactly. You in trouble.
Right.
Right. So you weren't going along. They knew that you wasn't going along with the program. So those are signs. Right. So and like I said before, so they got you. That's the thing I keep saying about Christianity. You so brainwashed because you're not thinking like a Hebrew. You ain't thinking. They got you off on something else, and nothing that you trying to put together, it ain't working because you off. Foundation ain't laid. You way off. So.
Yes, sir. And they still branding us today. It's just a little uptick in that. So when you are in prison, what they do, they put a number on you. That's still branding you. They, you know what I'm saying? You, it's not your name anymore. Your number, whatever, 58, 36, 51. You know, that's what you say when you go through the line, or you go to see the medical physician. You give them your number, not your name.
Right, right. Like he said, mark or etching. So
Right,
numbers, the whips on your back, the branding on your shoulder or chest when they brand you, all of them are markings.
right,
So it's
right.
all that's and like I said, they got you thinking about some more stuff, and then we're gonna see where all this futuristic stuff come from, because it's the same race of people. Like I was saying, what people don't do is they're not thinking right. So first of all, before we get out into this Sir, Sir Francis Bacon thing, I wanted to give you like I said last night, I'm gonna give you an image of what he looked like, photo, because it's not just any old photo. They're giving you they're showing you what he looked like. So look at it. Can you see that?
No, sir.
You don't see that? Okay, hold up.
It's trying to load now. Yes, sir. We can see it now.
Okay, see how he look? See the red hair?
Yes.
Can you see the
Mm.
red hair? See him?
Yes, sir.
Right. See, that's how he look. Okay, so and that should arouse something in you, because you know a bunch of people look like that all through history when you were in high school. So Newton, they created the what's it called? That I can't think of the name of what they call it. Relativity, where what goes up come down. Newton, all those men you see over there in Britain and London, they wore this type of clothing. They had the red hair. So we know, like I said, when Esau was born, the Most High took it upon himself through the prophets to let you know what he looked like. He tells you he was born red. Hair was hairy, red all over. See what I'm saying? And we know that what Jacob looked like is a total contrast. And so there's something going on with that. And that's why he says two nations are in thy womb when Abraham described it to it. It's two different nations in your womb. It comes two different places. Okay? So let's look at that. So go ahead and check this out. Okay. So see behind me, right here, you see there goes JC. Right here, over here. Yeah, JC right here. See? They make it going out their way. See the image of him? They're going out their way to showing you the red hair. You think they just a coincidence? And then the one over here with him on the cross. And not only is he dealing with the red hair, but we dealing with the red, the clothing. Most I asked the question in Isaiah 66. Wild dog traveling in the greatness of thy strength in red. That garment's covered in red. That's Esau. We know that from when what happened with him with the pottage. That's how he got the name Esau. But my thing is this right here. You go back in history, as you get to Great Britain, is where Sir Francis Bacon was at, right? See, you go to these same people. These are royalties and the kings and queens. Some of them, see, they got red hair. You think they're all this coincidence? Same race of people. So like I was saying, you got the Most High is addressing Jacob as because they father. the father that had all the children was name was Jacob. So when he says Jacob, he talking about all 12 tribes. And so Esau got 12 sons. So when he addressing Esau, he's talking about the nation. Like I said, we see right here. So then not only that, we see right here, these are British people. So we go on, keep going. This the I told you about the manifest destiny. See that? I mentioned this last night. This is an image, artwork they painted long ago. See, they got the wagons and the West, when the West won the trains, when the railroads came, they conquered the engine, they running the buffalo out, but it's a woman, it's a spirit that's over them. It's a woman. See the red hair? You think all this is a coincidence? This is where the wisdom come in at. You know damn well wisdom ain't no woman in the Old Testament, but this is where it come from. Tied to, like I said before, when we get into bacon, you're gonna see these people was they the ones that was dealing with all this dealing with these witchcraft and all that and dealing with these demons and fallen angels and getting this stuff about futuristic stuff like what the guy wrote about the year 84, back in 1984. I can't think of his name. It'll come to me. But anyway, so this was painted. It's a painting. It's called Manifest Destiny. It's a woman, spirit floating in the air, a female woman, and with red hair. And she got the book in her hand. And that's driving these people. Not creator Yahweh, not the Lord host, but it's a woman with red-haired woman. Like I said, they trace their lineage through the woman. So we're gonna go over here, and then we see people from our history. They get the history they gave us, and we see that this Julius Caesar right here. See that? Red. See the clothes? Same thing with JC. Got the red hair. Then we get over here to Cleopatra. They want you to think Cleopatra. All this let's go with the 18 years, like I said. Just like JC got 18 missing years, we got 18 missing years. From the time we born to 18. They brainwash us. So see the red hair? That's Cleopatra. But in the history books, and they're telling us, and in the HBCUs, they're telling you Cleopatra is a black woman. Well, this Cleopatra. Notice she got all the features of all the rest of the people I've showing you. The Edomites is a group of people. So this right here is obvious what I'm getting ready to show you now. So you see right here, this Queen Elizabeth. Back in the day, they called this queens. Remember they deal with the woman. So when Esau went into Europe with the Gentiles, he sent his daughters in there and married into these royal families, and that's how they became who they are today. But notice the red hair. So this is where the origins of bacon come from. He was a bastard to this woman right here. So then we go another image. Like I said, we remember seeing all this in high school and in college when you was dealing with history. They go to the Edomite. See the red hair? Yeah, that's how they dress. This is how Bacon dressed. This is how Newton and Sir Francis Drake, all those people. This is how they dress. But notice here, all the features right there. Okay, and so over here, one more thing to show you before I move forward. Okay, it's just recently just happened. Right, nobody connecting these dots. Just the giant that was over there in Afghanistan that attacked the U.S. Army. You read that? That's a mark in itself. Nobody ain't dealing with it though, but see her fire red out. It's a giant they killed. Same features to a bacon guy. Pale white skin, red hair. Nobody dealing with it. So let's get back over here. So this is I'm showing you his appearance, and that's connecting him to a whole race of people. Okay. So with that being said, anybody got a comment? Okay. So with that being said, I'm gonna play this little a little bit on Bacon's biography.
January 22nd, 1561, at York House, London, the residence of his father, Sir Nicholas Bacon, who for the first 20 years of Elizabeth's reign had been Keeper of the Great Seal. The fame of the father, says Macaulay, has been thrown into the shade by that of the son. But Sir Nicholas was no ordinary man. It is as one might have expected, for genius is an apex to which a family builds itself through talent, and through talent in the genius's offspring subsides again towards the mediocrity of man. Bacon's mother was Lady Anne Cook, sister-in-law of Sir William Cecil, Lord Burleigh, who was Elizabeth's Lord Treasurer, and one of the most powerful men in England. Her father had been chief tutor of King Edward VI. She herself was a linguist and a theologian, and thought nothing of corresponding in Greek with bishops. She made herself instructress of her son, and spared no pains in his education. But the real nurse of Bacon's greatness was Elizabethan England, the greatest age of the most powerful of modern nations. The discovery of America had diverted trade from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, had raised the Atlantic nations, Spain and France and Holland and England,
Go
to that
Spain.
commercial and financial supremacy which had been Italy's when half of Europe had made her its port of entry and exit in the East.
So let's look at that right quick so you can get a better understanding of it. So in 70 AD, when you understand who it was that was cast out of Israel in 70 AD, those are Edomites. They had came into the land and they took it. Obadiah explained it to you when the Greeks came, when Antiochus came. They always wanted to cover the land of Israel, and the opportunity came when the Greeks, at the end of the Greek kingdom, Antiochus came and drove the Israelites out in 143 BC. So from that point on, these Edomites is in the land of Israel, posing as Israelites. That's where the deception pretty much started. They got control of Judea and Egypt, and they was existing there. And then when the fourth beast came on the scene, they had a perverted zeal, unnatural zeal. It was perverted, and it kept causing problems for the Romans. So the Romans done away with them in 70 AD, cast them out. But they gave Herod, just like the Most High got a special relationship with David and David's lineage. The Roman Empire had a special relationship with Herod. They want to send 2 legions to Judea for Herod to take over Israel. That's how he became in power. So when it was time for the Romans to do away with them, they had an alliance with Herod and his lineage. So they gave Herod's lineage, the royalty, safe passage to Spain, with Spain and Portugal. That's where they went. Well, the other ones is 12 sons of Jacob, 12 sons of Esau. They ended up in Europe. That's the Saxons. The Saxons is not native to Great Britain. They came there. They invaded Great Britain in that area, called Saxons, Isaac's sons, but it's the fake ass Isaac's sons. That's what they call Saxons. So Herod's lineage went to Spain and Portugal, that region, and then the 12 tribes fled, just like you had the Israelites coming out of Egypt. You had you got the harlot, the fake Israelites. They on the move too, and we can trace them because, like I said, the Most High gave us a description of how they look. And so they showed up in England. They invaded England. The Saxons. Like I said, they're not natives of that. They're not natives of that region. They invaded that region. Okay. So with that being understood, we're gonna move forward. Okay. So that's them. Like you said, this age of enlightenment and all that coming from these men like Bacon, Sir Isaac Newton, all the men. They're all right there huddled up in Great Britain. That's where all this coming from. And they dealing with witchcraft and sorcery that they got from Babylon and all that when they was there. During the time of Haman, the Amalekites. Haman is the son of Agag, the Amalekite, that Saul spared his life. So they fled. So then when the story that happened with Esther, they had the decree went out for the Israelites to defend themselves, and they turned the decree on the Edomites. They had to flee. That's how they ended up in Greece. The Macedonians were Alexandria. That's how they ended up over there. They was fleeing from where they got caught in the tree with the Persians, Artaxerxes and Esther. They fled. And then from there, like I said, they ended up in Great Britain, the Saxons. That's these people. So with that being said, I want to, so we know that they the ones. Most High told you, when the prophecy went down that Isaac gave the two boys was that Jacob was gonna be blessed. He blessed him with the blessings from heaven. With the spirit of the Most High on him, he blessed him and said, you're gonna dwell in the fat places of the earth. Right? But it's stipulations to that. You're gonna, if you keep my law, my statutes, and don't turn away from me, you're gonna have that. We know what happened. They turned away. But he also told Esau, you're gonna live in the fat places of the earth, but you're gonna live there by the sword. And by the sword, it means deception, trickery, and everything else, and with weapons of war. And so we see he occupied Jerusalem by the sword. He occupied Egypt by the sword. He came to Great Britain by the sword. He came into America by the sword. He in the fat places of the earth, but he got there through cruelty and through war. Right? So let's look at America's beginnings. Nobody seen it. We just saw that George Washington went to the Jews. He didn't get on a boat and go nowhere. The Jews was there. They was there before they was one part of the 13 colonies. They had been there. They been had a plan, a vision to come to the Americas because they was being persecuted. Let's look at that right quick. Then we'll go into it. So just like we can identify who we are by the curses in Deuteronomy 28, well, Esau is identified by the curses the Most High got on him in 35. Ezekiel 35, I'm just going to read some of it. It says, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir. So what is that? What is Mount Seir? These are Horites, these giants, Canaanites. They came from the fallen angels. They live on Mount Seir. They're red-headed. This is the origins of the red-head. They red-headed giants. So this is who Esau married. He married into this lineage. That's why he deal with the woman, contrary to what the Most High said. So 13, Ezekiel 35:3, and say unto it, thus says the Lord God, behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. So just like he made Israel desolate, he made them desolate. That's the reason why they can't go back to the Mount Seir no more. He made it desolate. So it says, I will lay thy cities to waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Because, here go the reason, because thou hast a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword, in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity came to end. So Israel, iniquity, the real Israelites, iniquity came to an end when Antioch Epiphanes came, the Antichrist, and ran and destroyed and ran the Israelites out and destroyed the temple. That was way back in 143 BC. But the thing is, they got a perpetual hatred. So that's the hatred that's tied to the transatlantic slave trade and all the things that happened to it. This hatred right here, these people have, Esau have. He's behind the scene, throwing rocks, but he hiding his hand. So 6 says, therefore, as I live, saith the Lord, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. See that? Pursue thee, since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. So this is the reason. Remember, he gave Herod and his lineage say passage to Spain. That's where all the West, everything that's going on now, West Christianity, all that came from Spain. Those 3 ships that left Spain, coming to a new world. Why? They're looking for somewhere to get away from this curse. These curses right here. Look what it says. Therefore, as I live, says the Lord God, I will prepare unto thee blood. Blood shall pursue thee. See that? So go to what happened with them over with the Germans. That wasn't the first incidents. They was being persecuted all over the place. They was being ran from one country after another one because of they trickeration with usury and they diabolical ways. That when people finally figured out what they was capable of, they didn't want them in their country no more. So they was ran out from one country to the next. So they looking for a place to go. So guess what? That's when Bacon popped up on the scene with this new Atlantis, New Jerusalem thing. They can't go back to Israel no more. They remember the time when they was there, but they can't go there no more. So they want to go somewhere else and find a land that they can inhabit, and then they're gonna label it. They're gonna name it. The cities and the places and the regions in that area the same as the places over in Jerusalem and over in Israel. That's where all this coming from now. The lost 10 tribes and all this bullshit that they talking about over here now came from this Bacon and these people that was in Great Britain and Spain. They're looking for somewhere to get away from the Most High's hand. He got it stretched out on them. So here we go. This is a little video on America's beginnings. Okay. Now we're saying, let me give me a minute. This right here is America's beginning. America's beginning is that, you know, this is hidden under the you know, hidden from the, you know, the population. Come on. Okay. Okay. Let me play this first. Yeah, come back and I don't see it on my here you go. Okay. Here we go.
Matt here just got a final payment on his biggest contract.
Okay.
People love a reliable, fast fiber internet.
They also love
Some even suggest that Atlantis was really the antediluvian world, the wicked society destroyed by the wrath of God in the great flood of Noah. In the 20th century, Plato's account was further supported by Masonic philosopher Manly P. Hall. Hall claimed that Atlantis had once been a vast and mighty empire that extended to the whole world, a philosophic commonwealth of nations that one day was destined to be rebuilt. But who would rebuild it? And exactly who was Manly P. Hall?
Manly P. Hall was probably the most highly esteemed occultist and Freemason of the 20th century.
He understood the secrets of the ages long before he ever joined the Mason.
Was really the foremost authority on the occultist side of Freemasonry, the deep, dark side of Freemasonry, the one that most Masons never ascend to.
I can't really think of anybody close to him.
Manly P. Hall was one of the leading people within this whole other world that we talk about.
Hall authored over 200 books and is said to have given some 8,000 lectures on ancient philosophy. He is perhaps most remembered for his contribution to the mysterious Brotherhood of Masonry. Upon his death in 1990, the Scottish Rite Journal, a Masonic publication, noted that he was often called, quote, Masonry's greatest philosopher. Among his teachings was that contained in Masonry and all the secret orders was the ancient wisdom of lost Atlantis. Hall wrote that for more than 3,000 years, secret societies had been laboring to create a background of knowledge necessary to the establishment of an enlightened democracy among the nations of the world. According to Hall, these societies could be traced back to ancient Egypt and had for centuries known of a secret place hidden from the eyes of common men, a place that would one day be revealed. In the 17th century, as settlers were colonizing the New World, Sir Francis Bacon, the leader of secret societies in England, set down his classic work, The New Atlantis. While archaeologists and treasure hunters have searched the globe looking for the lost continent, 400 years ago, Bacon, like many of his contemporaries, believed that Atlantis was America itself.
Well, Bacon, to me, was really fundamental in the American colonizational scheme and its connection to the New Atlantis concept. He was trying to lay a foundation for what could be accomplished in the New World.
While the Atlantis of Plato was a mighty empire known for the philosophy of its kings, Bacon would write of a nation governed by scientific achievement, filled with marvels and wonders never before seen.
Bacon was talking about this new.
So let's look at that right quick. So when you understand what's going on, what is Atlantis? And so I broke that down on several different occasions that those 200 angels came down. These highly intelligent beings, but they defiled themselves. They went into women and defiled themselves. So before they did that, they had these supernatural abilities to ascend and descend. They abode as in heaven. But when they came down and defiled themselves with the women, they couldn't ascend no more. They found that they couldn't ascend no more. So you got these 200 highly intelligent beings confined to the earth. They built Atlantis until they found a way. You had to get back into the space. Their whole objective was to go back into the heavens, back into the firmament. That's where the UFOs come from. They finally found a way. They highly intelligent beings. Then they finally left. They made crafts, whatever, found a way to leave here. That's why you don't see Atlantis no more. So what these Edomites trying to do, they was in the land of Israel at one time. They familiar with, because they're dealing with their cult, they familiar with Atlantis. So they're looking for a place, a landmass to, Atlantis, New Jerusalem is all the same thing. So then that's where the Nina the Pinna and the Santa Marina come in there. They found this place. They ain't discovered, they just found it. And then when they came here, they was, like I said, when the 13 colonies, the Jews, Edomites is already here. They're the ones behind the 13 colonies. So I'm just gonna say this, get your mind right. So we got Boston, we're gonna see that in a minute. Boston, Massachusetts, all that where the 13 colonies at. Well, we know that in 2017, eclipse came and put a mark across that same area, right? And in 2024, the other mark gonna come to make the X. Guess where it's at? Same place where these people was at. They built these cities, occultic. They're cultists. They built Washington, D.C. with the cult symbols all over, demonic symbols. Philadelphia, Boston, all them cities is built off of ancient Egyptian numerology and all that occultism. Why do you think the X is there? The X coming there. But it's behind all this right here, what we're looking at. Sir Francis Bacon. That's what brought this place into existence to where it's at now. It ain't got shit to do with no being righteous and holy people. They came here with, like he said, deep, dark evil they brought here and brought this place into existence. Okay?
Nation, talking about submarines, talking about unimaginable weapons of war, talking about flying machines and tall buildings. How did he come into possession of this knowledge?
Did Francis Bacon outline the course of the New World before its time? And if so, by what power was he inspired to do so? While there are no states or cities that bear his name, his mysterious influence has compelled some to call him the real and true founder of America.
His founding of America was really through other people who were following his word, following the program he'd laid out.
Bacon was the head of Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism.
He had a huge influence through being the chief of the Rosicrucian fraternity at the time. He had a huge influence on the birth of modern Freemasonry. And many of those Rosicrucians actually went into Freemasonry at that time to lift it up to its new level. And Freemasonry has a major influence on the founding of America.
While many of the early settlers came to work the land for the cause of religious freedom, there were with them secret societies who came to the New World with another agenda.
Secret societies came to America shortly after the Pilgrims arrived, and they were sent by a man named Sir Francis Bacon.
So we see right here that George Washington went to the Jews when he got in trouble in the Revolutionary War, and then the Jews gave him the money. That's them, these people right here. Like I said, it's a race of people. That's where they went. And nobody else here. The so-called Indian and the colonizers, but Esau here too. Like I said, he didn't come back across the water to Britain. He went right there to where they was at. He knew they was at. And they funded him and gave him the money he needed and the resources he needed to fund his army. It was already here. Because riding off with Bacon and people before him. Okay.
You get this very strange mixture of people, many of whom understood even then the advantage, spiritually and otherwise, to having secret orders.
Unless you understand the influence of the occult societies on the development of America, on the establishment of America, on the course of America, why you get completely lost studying our history.
And they were the ones through which this work was being put into operation in England, in Europe, and eventually in America and the world.
So that America then could be used to lead the world into the philosophic empire. You understand that America was founded by Christians as a Christian nation. However, there were always those people on the other side who wanted to use America, use our military power and our financial power to establish enlightened democracies throughout the world and restore lost Atlantis.
Yeah, maybe Bacon had it right. Maybe Atlantis is not something yet to occur, but maybe it's occurring right now in America.
In his lifetime, Sir Francis Bacon referred to himself as the herald of a new age. He promoted a new universal order for the whole world. Can this be what early American founders referred to with the words Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new order of the ages? And does this vision affect America today?
When our founders declared a new order of the ages, they were acting on an ancient hope that is meant to be fulfilled.
As America marches forward, spreading democracy throughout the globe, is she merely promoting freedom or fulfilling an ancient plan? Is she following a course?
Yeah, so going right along with prophecy, he told him, Isaac told him, you're gonna live in the fat places of the earth, but you're gonna live there by the sword. That's what we see. That's what Christianity is. Onward marching soldiers, marching to the cross, with the sword. They coming with Christianity, but everything they do is with weapons of war and colonizing. And that's what Isaac told him. That's what we is right today. Rome is Edom. We merged with the Cain descendants. They became one. Rome is synonymous with Edom. They're one and the same. Okay, I'm gonna play one more else here. I got some stuff I want to read. Okay. You might want to tie your shoes up on this one. Okay. It's crazy, man. It's not that. My computer not acting right. Let me get it done.
Don't let toxins build up in your body. Try
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the African Exodus Show. I'm your host, Tini Cherie, here to you with a new video. Before we get started with today's subject, I want to remind you all, if you have not already, please do add yourself in my Telegram channel. The link is down below. I update Telegram anytime I post. I believe he wanted me to redo it so that I could spend a little more time and get a little bit more detail as far as how we're going to discuss this. But we're talking again about the hidden history of the United States of America. If you don't know, the United States is a Masonic experiment. Freemasons say this. The founders know this. This country was literally created out of Freemasonry. So if you want to know what Freemasonry is, maybe I'll do a more in-depth video about that. Just the big overarching thing you should understand is Freemasons are a secret society. They present themselves as being one way, yet they have a whole another legacy that they don't talk about. They have their roots with the Knights Templar, who we discussed. They also have 33 levels. Those upper levels, the upper 33-degree Masons, 32, those upper levels are the people who are really behind a lot of things that are happening in this society. Those are the ones who actually know more about what the Freemasons are about. The lower levels are basically kept in the dark about the actual legacy of their organization. But I encourage you to do more research. And again, I'm sure we can get more into that, the Most High willing. So we're going to talk about America, though, in that regard. What would a secret society have to do with the United States, right? The United States occurred spontaneously. People who were oppressed by Britain, people who wanted freedom and liberty, all these things were told in the U.S. history class. Understand none of that stuff is true. Everything is planned. Everything is foretold. Everything is foreseen by people, by entities, and you will never know because you're only told one narrative or one side of the story. So we're going to just talk in this particular video about the United States founders, what they were involved in as far as Freemasonry. The next video will get into more detail about some of the Masonic interwoven conspiracies inside of the United States government, and we're going to get more in detail about that. I'm going to read through 2 articles in order to go through this subject. I think these articles hit on basically all the areas that I know of. I'm sure there's more things to know, but because of that, I think that they're a good synopsis about this issue. So we're going to first start with this one article. This is 10 intriguing Masonic connections to the founders of America. Manly P. Hall stated clearly in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, that the U.S. was nothing less than a Masonic experiment designed to allow Freemasons to dominate the world. Now, that might not be told what you're told about Freemasons if you ask a Freemason, especially the lower degrees. I mean, they might sincerely not know that. As far as the upper degrees, they know what their organization is about. But that understand is the goal of these secret societies. They're not manipulating us because it's just fun. They're doing it because they have an agenda that they're trying to achieve, and we are in the way of their agenda. The United States Constitution, this is number 10, is based on Masonic writings. The Constitution of the United States has many links to the writings of British Freemason James Anderson in his 1723 book, The Constitutions of Freemasons, which was edited and reprinted by Benjamin.
So they got a book. Long before the Constitution came, they got a book called the Book of the Freemasons, Constitution of the Freemasons. So I showed you how all they did. You can train a baboon to do this. They took the Old Testament, went and got a bunch of information from the Old Testament and created the New Testament. So we're gonna see right here, same thing with the Constitution.
Franklin, who, if you don't know, was a Freemason. 11 years later, in 1734, it's largely agreed that this was the first Masonic book to be printed in the United States, and its influence on many notable Americans of its time is seemingly profound. In terms of the U.S. Constitution, which came into effect in March 1789, some sections appear to have been lifted in its entirety from the Masonic text, particularly those concerning free speech, rights to citizenship,
copyright,
and each man having a vote. Those things were lifted directly from the Freemason Constitution.
So let's look at that. Let's look at that. So, because it's going to come up in a minute. So in high school. Like I said, 18 missing years in every Israelite life is okay. You got they told you a supernatural event happened. George Ben Franklin, all these men, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington was all in this room, and then they locked themselves in there. And then they said some divine happened, and then the Constitution came together. We see how it happened, right? Because we're gonna see that again. These people do the same shit over and over again, just like I told you with Martin Luther King. We had got to the point where our tolerance of them that came to a fool. We was ready to go. And then here come Martin Luther King. Then it happened again in 2008. We was tired. We was ready to go. We was pressing in on them. And then they brought Obama, slick ass, on the scene. You know, we ain't figured it out yet, so they're gonna continue to do it. You see right here. They lifted the damn Constitution right out of this fucking satanic ass book. Big parts of it. We see the same thing from the New Testament. They're getting stuff out of the Holy Scriptures and sticking it over in the New Testament. And you got Negroes trying to figure that out when it's bullshit. So they've been doing it over and over again. We're gonna see the same thing happen, like I said, in a minute with the King James. Okay, so I'm gonna play some more of this though.
Number 9, because I want to get through this article quickly so we can spend more time on the other one. Satanic layout of Washington, D.C. Yes, if you look at the architecture, in fact, there's one, maybe I'll be able to show it to you in this video that I just noticed. There's so much Masonic imagery.
Right. So it's got all them cities on the East Coast. We know what's coming. They got a water event coming to the East Coast. Why the East Coast? That's where all these cities at. Demonic ass cities. You got Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Boston, all them, these the cultists when they came here, these Edomites designed these cities in that way. Go back to what Cain was doing in the city of Enoch we was reading about. Cain went out and started building cities. Okay. Alexandria, the same thing.
As well as in other U.S. cities. So the layout of America's capital is certainly intriguing, not solely because of the precise measurements, symmetry, and angles involved in the planning of the streets. According to some, the entire layout of the city makes up Masonic symbols, and particularly the goat head pentagram, more associated with satanic cults. Now, why would a Christian country have a satanic symbol inside of their layout? Why would
you got so many people that you got so many people that only think it's Washington, D.C. No, it's Boston. All over there where the 13 colonies was at, where these Jews at to this day. Same thing over in Israel.
They have a Washington monument, if you don't know, that is 666 feet high. Maybe that Christian country has more to it than they're actually saying. Maybe they have beliefs that they're not admitting. But let's go to number 8. The U.S. Capitol is a rebuild of Solomon's Temple. Inside the building, under the dome, is a detailed painting of George Washington, where he is portrayed as a deity, described as the American Christ. Interestingly, Jesus's, or Yeshua's, own divinity was often portrayed the same way by Europeans, of course. The cornerstone of the Capitol building was also put into place only after a full Masonic ritual had been conducted, presided over by President George Washington, no less. Oh yeah, we'll get into more detail about George Washington, but George Washington was a big Freemason, another one of your country's founders. Let's talk about Albert Pike and the Knights of the Garden Circle, a controversial figure in U.S. history, perhaps even more so in the current political climate of 2017. That's when all the statues and Confederate monuments were being torn down. Is Albert Pike, who served as a general for the Confederate Army during the Civil War. He was a well-known, even revered Freemason and a person of huge influence in such circles. In fact, at the time, Pike was the head of the Scottish Rite in the southern jurisdiction. Pike has also has unproven connections to the Knights of the Golden Circle, a group that was a forerunner of the Ku Klux Klan and would assist the Confederacy during the internal conflicts. Some accusations even claim that Pike was a rampant Satanist, which even the Masonic connections and apparent satanic layout of Washington, D.C. is perhaps not so much of a stretch or figure of the imagination if you buy into the secret society theories. One more interesting controversy regarding Albert Pike is a apparent hoard of gold buried away since the end of the Civil War. Although this gold has never been recovered as far as anyone knows, legend has it that it's stashed at the end of the war, perhaps in the event the Confederate Army might rise again. It's important for you to know. Confederates rising again, something that is very much possible, particularly as we see America on the verge of collapse in many ways. But the Masonic ceremony of the cornerstone of the White House, yes, much like the cornerstone of the Capitol building was subject to Masonic ritual, so was the cornerstone of the White House. George Washington would also.
So let's look at that. So you got Zerubbabel. Don't he tell us in Zechariah that Zerubbabel, the Lord of hosts, said that Zerubbabel was going to come back and build his house. Zerubbabel going to have the cornerstone, and he's going to come back and rebuild his house. Well, whose house is this? That George Washington putting the cornerstone in. The downstone in Yahweh house. Like I said, you can train the baboon to do this. All they doing is what they got out of the Old Testament. They putting a Christian take on it, but it's wicked as hell. You fool the masses.
To oversee this ritual, as well as the overall design and layout of the White House, which he did not live in it for himself. Many of the builders of the White House also had strong Freemason connections. The next one, during the inauguration of the U.S. presidents, this is number 5. The reasons for this largely with George Washington, who was preparing to take the oath, stated that he must have a Bible to do so in line with his Masonic beliefs. So basically, to putting the hands on the Bible. Number 4, though, many of the founders were Freemasons. Now, this is important to know. 14 U.S. presidents were known as known Freemasons. Now, accounts for about a third of all the presidents in U.S. history. Known Freemasons, and also keep in mind there are other secret societies that don't identify with as Freemason, but they are of the same cloth and they are of the same powers, of the same meetings. They know these people, they're interlinked with these people, so don't be distracted by the Freemason label necessarily. The proportion of the founding fathers of the United States who were Freemasons would bear similar numbers. For example, of the 39 men who signed their names to the United States Constitution, 13 were known Freemasons. Several years earlier, a total of 56 men would sign the Declaration of Independence, 9 of whom were Freemasons, including widely respected Benjamin Franklin and John Hancock. Franklin in particular is regarded as an immensely important figure in America during his time, although he didn't serve as a president. His influence on the U.S. as a whole was just as great. He was considered a top scientist and a key intermediate for politicians. He also was the only person to have signed his name to the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and the Treaty of Paris. Don't worry, we'll talk more about Ben Franklin. Number 3, obviously the 1-eye symbol on the dollar. We're going to get more into the dollar inside of, I believe, the 4th part to this Hidden History of America series. So I'm just going to, reference it, but the all-seeing eye on the dollar, I think we know about that. Number 2, an interesting thing, a Masonic doomsday. It is absolute basic form. The theory suggests that the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776 began a 13-year period, which, when matched up against the dimensions of the Great Pyramid and longitudinal lines of the Earth, correspond to key events in history. Oh, and it's counting down to 2022, they said, when something will happen, be at the end of days or the start of a new age. Good food for thought. Are we in a new age? Last but not least, though, Sir Francis Bacon, who you should understand the way that this man literally created America. According to Thomas Jefferson, Sir Francis Bacon, one of the most influential people in the world, He was a known Freemason member of various secret and a member of various secret societies. Bacon is regarded by some researchers to be the real founding father of America. Yes, did you know that? Bacon was a keen researcher of esoteric knowledge, and it was his vision to create a new Atlantis and a utopia.
Yes, sir.
Though Bacon was prominent in British politics, he would send his son to America to be his eyes in the new land. It is claimed that it was the teachings of Bacon that would result in his vision being realized through the founding father's actions. A Newfoundland stamp revealed in 1910 had the following inscription on it: Lord Bacon, a guiding spirit in the colonization scheme. This would seem to suggest that his influence on the New World was profound, to say the least. Just side note, it's just very interesting. It always called America the New World. And what are we talking about now? The New World Order. Because obviously America is not a new place. It's not a new world. But what were they talking about when they said that? Were they referencing the New World Order? So SABBATH, food for that. So I want to go to this article now. I think it's from my tea. The secret founding of America and why it matters today. So let's just jump right in. In the 16th century, Sir Francis Bacon, right back to him. He was at the helm of the secret societies in England and authored his famous book, The New Atlantis. Bacon's book was the blueprint for the colonizing of the United States, advocating that America, listen to this, would become a paradise in which men would follow reason, become gods, and work for a universal world republic that would then replicate the utopian conditions of America throughout the known world. Let's slow that down for a second. So America would become a paradise in which men would follow reason. Now, America is not paradise for many of us. So what is he talking about? Reason, we should understand, is code for, again, this new world, right, new order of ages.
Philosophy. So notice what he said, men is going to be gods. It's damn sure like the black man and the Israelite, because he brought over here slaves. So what are you talking about? Back to these redhead people. Who got all the money? Who walking around as gods today? He's talking about Esau. He's going to come here. He the architect behind all this.
If you watch the video I did on depopulation and population control, you will notice in the Georgia Guidestones, or if you've just ever seen a Georgia Guidestones, you know that they talk about the things that you must do in order to obtain this age of reason. The age of reason is what the goal is. And again, as I tell you, we, children of Yah, the true children of Israel, we are in the way of that goal. We've always been in the way of that goal, and that's why they tried so many maneuvers in order to get rid of us. But Yah had other plans. Now, it also says that they would become gods, and for a universal republic that would replicate utopian conditions throughout the world. That's the purpose of America, to give these secret society folks that you never see, give them a divinity. That's what they truly believe. Now, you don't have to believe in that. This is what they believe. That's what you should understand, regardless of what your beliefs are. Now, as a chief Rosicrucian, Rosicrucians, again, those are the ones who made the Georgia Guidestones. The Rosicrucian and the Grand Master of modern Freemasonry, Bacon sent his followers to the New World. In 1910, Newfoundland stamp with his image upon it reads, Lord Bacon, guiding spirit in the colonization scheme, as we just spoke about. But his influence, Francis Bacon is considered by some to be the real and true founder of America. For centuries, controversy has surrounded this figure who is said to be the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth I and a secret author of Shakespeare plays, the man whom Thomas Jefferson considered one of the most influential men in history. In 1733, Rosicrucian Freemasonry formally entered America when the St. John's Lodge was established in Boston. It became a Masonic capital of Britain's colonies by 1737. There were lodges in Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, all committed to implementing the plan of a utopian New Atlantis. In 1731, Benjamin Franklin became a Rosicrucian Mason, and in 1734, a provincial Grand Master of Pennsylvania. Now, a few things that I want to know about Francis Bacon. I did know about the Shakespearean belief that he's actually Shakespeare. A lot of people have speculated that. I did not know that he's the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth I, but if he is, this also relates to a whole nother issue that I think we'll have to talk about, and that is the bloodline families, namely the monarchs inside the European monarchs. If you do your research on these people, a lot of them say that they are descended from, a lot of them say that they're descended from Christ, which we know is not true, but they make that claim. A lot of these people claim this divinity, and if you do a lot more digging, you find that a lot of the things that they're actually referencing are the Nephilim. But that's something that we'll have to get into in another video. Now, we're going to talk about, let's see, the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson, the writer of the Declaration of Independence, he was a Rosicrucian. Hager notes that the federalism that finally united the 13 colonies into the states was identical to the federalism of the Grand Lodge of the Masonic government, which had been created in Anderson's Constitution of 1723, as we spoke about. If you didn't know, the Boston Tea Party was an entirely Masonic event organized by St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, of which John Hancock and Paul Revere were members, and supported by Virginia Masons Patrick Henry and Richard Henry Lee. After dark on December 17, 1773, at least 120 Masons from St. Andrew's Lodge, disguised as Mohawk Indians, boarded the ships and threw the tea into the harbor, allegedly to protest numerous taxes levied by King George III. Of the 56 signatures on the Declaration of Independence, 9, according to some, 53, according to others, came from Freemasons. The first president, George Washington, again, he was a Freemason and elected Grand Master of the Templar of Alexandria Lodge, according to Hager.
Okay, this is a little bit that she put on the end of this dealing with Steve Coakley. I don't know if anybody know about Steve Coakley, but he did a lot of research on this subject right here, and they tried to poison him 2 times, then finally they ended up killing him the 3rd time. But he was shining a light on the other side of this, which is these diabolical ass Negroes, that tied to the same thing. And they the ones they bring out to keep us toned down. So we're gonna deal with that right quick. Then I'm gonna go into what I was talking about before I close out. Okay, here you go.
To have a discussion about the black male secret society known as Sigma Pi Phi, acronym the Boule, B-O-U-L-E. Much of our black press, as much as we like it, has not been honest in talking about this group of black men, for they respected very highly and never speak.
This where Martin Luther King came from. This where Obama. They got truckloads of them, just like they had the breeding farms back during the time of slavery. Once they shut down the ships going over there to get them, they tasked up the breeding farms. Well, that's what this is. The HBCUs and all that. They breed these Negroes right here. They bring them on the scene. We looking at them as because they look like us, but they diabolical. They just like the damn Bacon and the rest of them. They diabolical. That's the reason we in the predicament we in. So let's look at it.
Negatively against
so-called mega pastors.
We also know that we've had many black people who've been a member of it and have never, ever broken the code or the creed and spoken to one who was a non-member. So they pledge and swear that their goal is to represent you. You will have a hard time believing it when they don't even seek to let you know that they who help you are.
So let's look at this. This is another one of those things that get under my skin. So let's look at it. You look at the curses, and we see that he's dealing with Israel, Jacob, the 12 tribes. So he said they're gonna be at the bottom of the food chain, right? They ain't gonna have nothing. So then we turn around and say, oh, with some black people, they got money. No, they ain't no fucking Israelites, because they're these people. And we associating them with associating with our predicament and curses. They ain't know. They're not part of the Israelite at the bottom of the food chain. They being oppressed. Who's these folks? We're gonna see right here who they are.
And so, in July 17th, 1990, July 18th, 1990, the Los Angeles Times did a front-page story on the left column about elite fraternity of black men. Excuse me, bro. I should go outside out and get away. I'm just showing myself. I stand back here. This elite fraternity of black men were described in the article as being influential, as being somewhat like Skull and Bones at Yale. And as it said these things, I was a little in awe, as the others, brothers in African Minds United and the Coalition Against Black Exploitation, as we all were intrigued by the fact that this group of men could have been in existence and we not know about them. And even other brothers and sisters, I remember talking to a brother who had been National Executive Secretary of Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma, been in fraternity land 37 years, had heard nothing of the Boule ever, though its founder had been a member. And so, as we began to talk about it with other people around the country, we began to realize that people didn't know about it. How you doing, my boy? And did not know that people didn't know about it. We just assumed that it was incidental, that everybody must know something about it, and that it was not mysterious or connected to all of those other things we had previously been talking about, like Cecil Rhodes and Baron de Rothschild and all the Halls of Hades, the ADL and the Diamond Jewish Connection. We've been talking about the Trilateral Commission, who is responsible for this economic summit that you'll be seeing on TV the next 3-4 days. You need to know that. Anybody? Carl Rowan came on the radio right here in LA. And my friends jumped him, because we jumping them in every city. And when they jumped him, he said the Trilateral Commission ain't done nothing. But the Trilateral Commission went to the president and had him set up the annual economic summit starting in '76, France. So when you listen to how your destiny of your country, they say, rides on that meeting, you wonder how Rowan could make such an allegation. But knowing as a Boule in Washington, D.C. Epsilon chapter, his goal is to never speak of the high, white, and mighty whom the Boule, all 3,300, are sworn to protect. Yes, these brothers that we are pushing up against the wall have taken a sworn oath that they will never expose the whites that they know absolutely.
Same with the 200 angels, sworn oath.
Run the world. They, in ambition and in deference to liberation and respect of the race, have agreed to maintain the status quo of white supremacy, which has two levels of white supremacy: a local, limited, parochial side, the Ku Klux Klan, the Reardons, the Kenny Hahns, the local clans, but has a powerful, more mighty upper crust, which probably would include Occidental Petroleum and Arco and Exxon and Mobil Oil and the Rockefeller Foundation and other influential, wealthy families and institutions. So what we're talking about is, why haven't you heard of those people who are in the secret society? It's because the people who you look to, who you would most suspect would tell you, have sworn that they never will.
Right.
And because of that, that leaves the sub leadership, the other group of people that you like a lot, that leaves them to tell you, the heads of the various organizations, as you know them. But if you listen to them, they have never said of these black men, for that they did not know. Which means that Malcolm, we know, knew of these men. We know Marcus Garvey knew of these men, because their crowning, most outstanding achievement was the physical elimination and castigation of Marcus Garvey, and the insistence and the climate setting that brought about the death of Malcolm X. This is the original LA Times article.
Here we go, right here.
See that? Did you see that? When it ran in 1990? You did see it. No, you didn't see it. That's July 18th, 1990. Elite fraternity rights agenda of black men. This is the original article that came out on the boule that we just casually discussed here at the Good Life, which led to this penetration. Because by the time Ben Oswald gets up and starts decodifying a little of that symbolism, you will see that we have in fact cracked a riddle that has contained our people. Our people have been contained by an organized element of secret people who have used riddles, mysteries, and secret societies to jam us. And what we are doing is we are unlocking or decodifying the mystery, because once decodified and exposed, those who are secret in the light will not be as effective. Because what we found out is that when you're a skull and bones, when you go over, you're called a...
Did you know the real cause of your hair loss is not hereditary?
And the night is symbolic of the night of the round table. And that round table is the code word or the buzzword for an upper secret society that's in a book called Anglo-American Establishment, written by Carol Quigley. And in that book, he said, in the opening, that secret society of which the Rhodes Scholars come from is known as several names. This society has been known at various times as Milner's Kindergarten, as the Round Table Group. Okay, just hold it right there. Look at that page a second if you can read it, because that page is very significant to the discussion of who it is might be the ones that the boule has to cover for. In other words, they're covering for something. Now we know whatever they're covering for is beastly. In the book by Mary Palmer Hall, in the flower plant, fruits and trees, there was a tree showing the Knights of the Round Table. What I thought was interesting when I looked at the tree carefully is that in your mind we always thought about the tree in 12. But if you look carefully, see at the tree of the Knights of the Round Table, you find out that there are 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, 5 nights, 6 nights, 7 nights, 8 nights, 9 nights. Those 9 represent the symbolic 9 that's used in the Grecian Sphinx, which we'll be talking about shortly.
So those 9 nights he just said is 9 fraternities, black fraternities. That's at the HBCUs. They let that firmate. So that's why we in the predicament we can't bust out of it. They got these 9 nights that's upholding the secret societies that's was baking us in. That's why we can't nothing never happens. Like Dr. Clark Anderson said, we own the 1% of everything in America way back at the Emancipation Proclamation, and today we own 1%. That's impossible. The only way that can happen is what we're looking at. The very same people that you upholding and looking at, and giving them esteem, like the brothers just said, they're diabolical. They got oaths to this satanic ass shit that's been going on ever since 3,000 years ago when we was cast out of the land of Israel. The sororities, HBCUs is encased with these people, NAACP, all that. So we say, what are you talking about? Let me give you some history, a little history right quick. So I'm back in First Maccabees, right? And saying nothing new under the sun. So when the Antichrist came, Antiochus, let's look at what happened. These Israelites, black men, says, First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 8. I'll start at verse 1. It came to pass after Alexander of Macedon, son of Philip, who had came from the land of Checham, had utterly defeated Darius, king of the Medes and Persians, that he reigned in his stead, as he had before reigned over Greece. And he waged many wars. He go to wickedness, same wickedness we looking at. He waged many wars and captured fortresses and slaughtered the kings of the earth. And he made his way to the ends of the earth and despoiled a multitude of nations. The whole earth was silent before him. He became exalted, and his heart was uplifted. He mustered a very mighty army and ruled over the lands and rulers of heathens, and they paid him tribute. Afterwards, he fell sick and knew that he was going to die. So he called in his distinguished servants who were brought up with him, Edomites, and divided his kingdom among them while he was still alive. And Alexander had reigned 12 years when he died. His servants succeeded him, each in his own dominion. After his death, they all put on crowns, as did their sons after them for many years, and they did much evil on earth. Same evil we looking at. There sprung from them a sinful shoot named Antiochus. This is the Antichrist, Antiochus Epiphanes, the king of Antiochus. He had been a hostage in Rome, and he became king in the 133rd year of the Greek kingdom. So here we go right here. In those days, like way back, 3,000 years ago, in those days arose out of Israel. See that? These Israelites, black men who arose out of Israel, lawless men who persuaded many. They had persuasion over other Israelites. Now watch this. This is what these Negroes said. Let us go and make a treaty with the heathen around us. For ever since the time that we became separated from them, many misfortunes have overtaken us. So the plan seemed good in their eyes, and some of the people went eagerly to the king, Antiochus, Israelites, and he authorized them to introduce practices in Jerusalem. And they built a gymnasium in Jerusalem in the heathen fashion, right? And committed to uncircumcision and disowned the holy agreement and aligned themselves with the heathen and became slaves of wrongdoing. Same thing right here. These 9 knights, which is tied to the Boule, which is tied to these 9 Greek sororities, Q dogs and the Alpha Phi Alpha. That's where Martin Luther King came from. Alpha Phi Alpha. Abominable. That's who got us pinned down. Like the brother said, keep jamming us. That's why they're not gonna come on this channel. They ain't got shit to do with this. Okay? Yeah. So, any comments so far before I got something else I want to deal with, and then we'll close out. Anybody got any comments?
Not now, sir. Continue. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm learning a lot.
Okay, so we're gonna deal with can you read that information that you had sent to me, Michelle?
Yes, sir. Shalom, everyone. This is the authorized version of the Bible, 1611. It says there was, yes, sir. There was a conference held at Hampton Court Palace before King James on January 1603 between the Episcopals and Puritans. John Reynolds urged the necessity of providing for his people a uniform translation of the Bible. Reynolds was the leader of the Puritans, a person of prodigious reading and doctrine, and the very treasure of erudition. Dr. Hall Bishop of Norwich reports that he alone was a well-furnished library full of all faculties, of all studies, of all learning. The memory and reading of that man were near a miracle. The king approved the suggestion and commissioned for that purpose 54 of the most learned men in the university and other places.
King
There
James,
was
right?
a, yes,
Okay.
yes, sir. There was a careful selection of revisers made by some unknown but very competent authority. The translators were divided into 6 bands of 9 each, and the work of translation was apportioned out to them. A set of rules were drawn up for their guidance, which was happily come down to modern times, almost the only record that remains of this great undertaking. These concise rules have a genetic brethren and vigor which point to Bacon as their author.
Right.
Each reviser was to translate the whole of the original allotted to his company. Then they were to compare their translations together. And as soon as a company had completed its part, it was to communicate the results to the other companies, that nothing might pass without the general consent. If any company, upon the review of the translation so sent, differed on any point, they were to note their objection and state their reasons for disagreement. If the differences could not be adjusted, there was a committee of arbitration which met weekly, consisting of a representative from each company to whom the matter in dispute was referred. If any point was found to be very obscure, letters were to be addressed by authority to learned persons throughout the land, inviting their judgment. The work was commenced in 1604. Reynolds belonged to the company to whom Isaiah and the prophets were assigned. He died in 1607, before the work was completed. During his illness, his colleagues met in his bedroom so that they might retain the benefit of his learning. Only 47 out of the 54 names are known. When the companies had completed their work, one complete copy was made at Oxford and at Cambridge, and one at Westminster. Those were sent to London. The 2 members were selected from each company to form a committee to review and polish the whole. The members met daily at Stationery Hall and occupied 9 months in their task. Then a final revision was entrusted to Dr. Thomas Blyson and Dr. Miles Smith. And in 1609, their labors were completed and the result was handed to the king. Many of the translators have left specimens of their writings in theological treatises, sermons, and other works. A careful persuasion of all these available justifies the assertion that amongst the whole body there was not one man who was so great and literally stoutest as be able to write certain portions of the authorized version, which stamp it as one of the greatest examples of the English language. Naturally, the interest centers on Dr. Thomas Blyson, and Dr. Miles Smith, to whom the final revision was entrusted. There are some 9 or 10 theological works by the former and 2 sermons by the latter, unless the theory of a special divine inspiration for the occasion be omitted. It is clear that neither Blyson nor Miles Smith could have given the final touches to the Bible. And now a curious statement has come down to us. In 1609, the translators handed their work to the king, and in 1610, he returned it to them completed. James was incapable of writing anything to which the term beautiful could be applied. What happened to the translator's work while it was left in his hands? Okay. James had an officer to state at that time, of whom a contemporary biographer wrote that he had the contrivance of all King James his designs until the match with Spain. It will eventually be proved that the whole scheme of the authorized version of the Bible was Francis Bacon's. He was ardent. He was an ardent student not only of the Bible but of the early manuscripts.
Okay,
Saint
so
August.
hold it right there. So what you read, what you're reading is the fact that they gave all these different men different parts of the Bacon revived the King James Bible, right? He this language, just the way that if you go get a real original King James Bible, you can see it, the wording in it is different. It's like it's real smooth. Like Bacon, the one concocted that language. So anyway, so go to the earlier when they talked about the supernatural origins of the Constitution. Now we know that they got that they lifted most of the information out of the Constitution from that Masonic book. So right here, they saying what you just read is they trying to tell you that these men that was they gave different portions of the King James to edit and revive it. And they all came back, gave it to King James. Then some supernatural event happened when King James came back with it. It had a whole different type of lure on it, like it was something divinely came and brought it together, like they tell you about the Constitution, when really they took it to Bacon, and we know he a cultist, and he twisted and put that loop on it, like you got to get a 1611 Bible to really get the gist of what I'm talking about. It don't read like the King James today. It reads a whole different way. That's what brought the lure to the King James Bible. And then, like I said before, he got all kind of runes and codes and all that in there that your average reader don't know nothing about. Like I said, I think it's Psalm 22, right? Is that 22? Psalm 22. If you go from the top of Psalm 22, 41 words down, you're gonna get shake. Then you go from the bottom of Psalm 22 up, you're gonna get fear, Shakespeare. He put all these different codes in there in the scriptures. So they just, people don't understand how they mutilated the Tanakh, the Old Testament, when they came up with this story with JC and the New Testament, all that. They mutilated our scriptures.
That was Psalms 46, Brother Leonard.
Yeah. Psalm
Yes,
46. If you go to Psalm 46, start at the start, 41 words down, you're gonna get shake, and then you start at the bottom and go in 41 words up, you're gonna get spear, Shakespeare.
Yes,
you
sir.
got all these different. That's just one example. You got all these different codes out in there. So my thing is this: how in the hell is the Most High watched over that? These 66 books are all you need. You don't need nothing else when you got that kind of stuff in there. Okay, so that's what people have to begin to get in their mind, how that the people that we're dealing with and everything that they're giving us is it ain't right. You got to be able to. You got to start. Like I said, every time you hear something on Prophets of Awakening, go back and do the research. I mean, the lady mentioned the Georgia Guidestones. Go Google the Georgia Guidestones. Go Google Sir Francis Bacon and the King James Bible. You'd be surprised. So yeah, so all this stuff it has, like I said, on the West Coast. I mean the East Coast. It's a reason what's getting ready to happen on the East Coast. When you understand what these people did when they came here. But we don't know all this, so we seeing all this stuff starting to manifest itself, but don't know why. Okay. So anyway, when you see how they got these 46 men, they trying to throw you off by saying we got 46 men together and to do the King James Bible. No, go to the letter of Aurelius. Let me get to you. You can Google this right here. It's the letter of Aurelius. It's Aristeas, letter to Aurelius. This one is Septuagint. If you know anything about Septuagint, this one it was created. They got 70 Edomites at the Library of Alexandria, and they concocted the Septuagint. So they ain't doing nothing no different than that. We saw what they done with the Constitution. So they got 70 men got together, and what they did with the King James. Then when they finished it, they brought it to Bacon, and then Bacon did it, put his occult twist on it, and spells. They say nothing new. It's the same people I just showed you. All these Edomites, the red is. The Most I got a sign on them. Okay. You had anything else you wanted to read?
Yes, sir. It was just a little bit more, and that was it.
What was it?
So you can explain the last part of this. It says St. Augustine, St. Jerome, and writers of theological works were studied by him with industry, right? He has left his annotations in many copies of the Bible and in scores of theological works. The translation must have been a work in which he took the deepest interest and which he would follow from stage to stage. When the last stage came, there was only one writer of the period who was capable of turning the phases with that matches style with the great charm of the Shakespeare plays. Whoever that stylist was, it was to him that James handed over the manuscripts which he received from the translators. That man then made havoc of much of the translation, but he produced a result which on its literary merits is without an equal. This is the last part right here, Brother Leonard, that 30 years ago, another revision took place. But notwithstanding the advantages which the revisers of 1880 had over their predecessors of 1611, their version has failed to displace the older versions, which is too precious to the hearts of the people for them to abandon it.
Right, because John D. Because of Sir Francis Bacon he went and did all this little, the satanic stuff, and called on these demons and all that, and that's how he came. That's how he came with that. It's like the guy they talked about, Manny P. Hall. Google him, John D. These are the same people that was around the Pharaoh, same people that was when Moses threw his staff down. You had Janus and Jambres threw theirs down. These are the same people. This knowledge that Daniel talks about. Understanding. Let me read it. Then we'll close out. So it says that Daniel says, chapter 8, Daniel. Let me get it. It says chapter 8. Okay. Says in 23, and in the latter times of their kingdom, the Greek kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a fool, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences. That's what he's talking about. Witchcraft and the sorcery, all that. He understand all that. So that's what Bacon and all these means, even when you just mentioned St. Jerome, that's one of the so-called founding fathers of the church, of Christianity. They're all occultists, Satanists, summoning demons and all that. Okay. Yeah. So anybody got any comments or questions before we leave? We're gonna, like I said, I'll put the fine touches on this at the evening Shabbat class. Make sure it's so it stick. Anybody got any comments? And somebody asked this. This is Prophets of Awakening, the name of this channel. Prophets of Awakening. We here 8 o'clock every day, but Sunday and Monday. We here on Saturdays at 10 o'clock for the Shabbat class. Then we have an evening Shabbat class at 6 o'clock. But like I said, during the week, pretty much Monday through Friday, we start at 8 o'clock. Anybody else got anything?
No,
Okay.
sir. Just thank you very much. I'll be waiting at 6.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna say shalom. I see everybody this evening at 6 o'clock. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.